RISC architecture. So we'll start from the start, and lot of things we have already studied this in the past. Okay, so so we'll look at RISC basic, then we'll look at architecture, we'll look at register versus variables, and then few instruction we'll study today. And in the next 3 classes, we'll try to finish instruction set architecture for RISC-V, and then we'll have some assignments. Okay, I will give you a link for a simulator, and then we'll do assembly language programming. So some basics we have already studied. RISC stands for Reduced Instruction Set Architecture, and in particular we study RISC-V. Okay, so RISC-V will also look at this, introduction of RISC-V. This thing we have already discussed several times, that in computer that we work on, right, is nothing but abstraction that's presented to us, right? So that's the reason our people like me who are not born in your age, or people one generation above, like your grandfather, they don't need to know anything about processor, memory, or even assembly language programming, compiler, interpreter, or whatever, right? They are presented something at the top, right, which is very simple, and then all complexity is hidden from them. So similarly, however, we as an architect, we'll have to look at what all these components are. So first we have high-level language in which you code, like something here, that's in C, okay, and then that's converted into assembly language. The assembly language shown here, like load word, store word, etc., like load word here, store word here, these are all part of assembly language programming for RISC-V. And then this assembly language program that we write, because these are in terms of mnemonics, right? So if you ask to write this program in terms of zeros and ones, then it will be quite hard. Okay. Assembler converts this assembly language instruction into machine language instructions. So what we have here is the machine language instruction, but it's very complex, right? Because every time you have to type zeros and ones, and it becomes more messy. So there is a kind of very similar representation of that. That's assembly language program, right? So this is in terms of mnemonics that we can easily read and write. However, it still is more complex than what you do in C. And below this, you have, this we have seen data path. So data path is nothing but these kind of constructs, say ALU, register file, etc. And data path is responsible for manipulation of data, and for that we need a control unit. Okay, and then at the bottom we have nothing but gates, and below gates you will have transistors, and below transistor you will have some electrons and so on, right? So this philosophy, okay, all right, so we are back here. So this philosophy we have studied in the last class. This architecture was proposed by Patterson and Hennessy. These two great people have written also a book that we are using in this course. And they came with the idea that there's no need for instruction set to be complex. Instead, instruction set could be very simple. It means the format of instruction and types of instruction, number of instruction can be very, very simple. Okay, so it means that keep the instruction set small and simple in order to build fast hardware. Now, their claim is that instruction is difficult, then implementation of that will require more complex circuitry. Okay, and there is no need for doing that, because high-level language program can easily be split into simple instructions that can run faster because more hardware is available to them. Okay, so let software do complicated operation by composing simpler ones. It means that complex hardware, the complex instruction at a high level language can be split into or can be made of, actually can be represented by a set of simple instructions. Okay, and so this was born from that. And a lot of, see, this group in Berkeley and then Stanford has been working on it for last 3 decades. And they have influenced, for example, Spark machine, uh, then MIPS architecture, then something that is in the ARM processors, right? And we have seen the ARM processors have become very popular in mobile domain. Uh, so now they all came out with the idea that why not make it open source? Because in the past, had you used ARM's assembly language and created system on that, okay, then you had to pay some money to ARM, right, to use it because it's proprietary to them. Although everything has the basic instruction set, even for something that's using ARM or MIPS, has come out of the university. So the university group has decided that they will open source it. Now they are open sourcing not only instruction set, but also the implementation of that. That's the reason we decided let's go through it, because in future you will very likely that you will use RISC in case you get into uh, any company like that works on hardware. Okay, nevertheless, this is so, and also we'll have more opportunity of getting deeper into the technology. So now you'll find in the book, which is Peterson and Hennessey's book uh, on RISC-V. So they have written multiple books, and the RISC-V is one where where you'll find the whole book oriented around RISC-V. Yeah, okay, just all these activities. For that reason, this waiting group is uh, 5th generation RISC designed from UC Berkeley. It's a high quality license free, royalty free RISC ISA specification. It means that you can use it, you can design your chip. Like IIT Madras recently has come out with India's first microprocessor, that's what they call it. And they could develop it because it's based on RISC-V. Okay. If you want, you can design your own microprocessor and send it to a foundry, right? So the process as follows: when you design using some tools, and these tools are also available in RISC-V website. You use those tools, then you verify it somehow, your design, and then you can send it to a foundry, which could be in any country. It's like a software file. Okay. Any question? We have already discussed, and then RISC-V has come out with 32-bit architecture, 64-bit architecture, and 120-bit variant. It means that you can take anyone and design systems around this. Okay. However, in this class, we'll take only 32-bit version. Okay. And we'll see what all we can do with this one. All right. So now a large number of groups have joined this initiative. These are the foundation member. Almost everyone you see that's working on developing hardware systems or chips or processors, you'll find these names here. However, you may not find some names which like Intel, because Intel directly competes with this one. Possibly they are also here, but I couldn't find. Okay, so this technology, which is RISC-V, is going to be very popular. Okay, all right. So now let's get into technical part. Okay, in high level language, like C or Java or whatever you use, we have something called variables, right? Now, without variables, you cannot do programming. Okay, can you do programming without variables? It's very, very difficult, right? Because variables are what? I mean, the variables are those whose value changes during the execution of the program, and they have certain lifetime. Okay, that's what we say as a scope. Okay, so variables is nothing but container we define in memory. Okay, and these containers are this nothing but memory location of certain width, and in this one you put something of certain type. So if this container can be of int type, or it could be say for a character type or something. So correspondingly, memory location will contain the contents of the same type. And when you read from this one, you know that something that's coming is nothing but int, has int representation. Okay. While I mean inside memory, it will be always zeros and ones, but you have defined that this particular memory location corresponding to int variable, say a, will be storing bits corresponding to an integer. So interpretation of that would be different. However, note that when you do assembly language programming, we don't have variables. We cannot define variables, right? So we have to use registers. Okay. So so it means that so variable values, for example, your CR instruction like a is equal to b plus c in language C, then you will have to put value of C in some register, say 1, B in register 2, and you'll have to do this add operation on B and C, and the final value that you get will be stored in register A. Now it is your responsibility as a programmer now to make sure that how these values B and C are interpreted and what these registers will contain. Okay, it may contain integer, it may contain char or whatever. That is all left to the programming or their interpretation. Okay, any question on this one?
So could you explain the second point, closer what simple hardware can directly support?
What's the second point, please?
So assembly has more primitive, closer what simple hardware can directly support.
Okay, so basically, see, abstraction that you have in higher level language, where you define variable, okay, and define constant, and many other data structures, you don't have all those facilities available in assembly language program. Okay, so you see, basically in memory you can define at higher level language, you can define anything. You define the double word, you can define maybe even a string, for example, as a data type or something. But here all you have, okay, is nothing but registers. In register, whatever and register values that you load, you can manipulate. So we'll come to this point again, right? So we'll come here, right? So registers are directly built into the hardware that we have seen, okay, and they are very fast, okay, that we have also discussed. We'll just somebody has come. Okay, all right. So we'll come now. We'll come to your point. Just a minute. Give me a few minutes. Okay. Before that, this particular slide we have already discussed. In a processor, we have registers and control unit. And in case in RISC-V, we have 32 registers. We'll come to that. We have program counter, arithmetic logic unit. This arithmetic logic unit is a program counter and control unit. Control unit generates control signals, and then we have memory here. Then processor memory interface. Similarly, I/O and memory interface. So these are input-output devices, and then memory interfaces with that. And then we have program within memory. We have program and data, because we are still using one-to-one architecture. That memory contains both data as well as instructions. Okay, so this is very simple. And then we have write data bus and read data bus. Okay, so this is very simple architecture that we have already discussed. Okay. Okay, so registers, yeah.
So when you speak about the registers, do you include the memory address register and the memory data register also?
So right now we are, so we see memory address register and memory data registers are inside memory. These are not general purpose register, right? So, right now we are treating this as a black box. Okay, and inside that we will have MAR and MDR. Okay, inside that, right? Right now we are not. So what we have done is that in past lecture, we have looked at a data path design. Okay, actually that we'll get into data path design again, but last class was just to give you glimpse of that or abstract view or very simple view of that, right? So, so when we say general purpose registers, we don't include in that something that is inside memory. Okay, these are inside processor.
Yes.
All right.
So, the variables which are generated for a program, suppose a is equal to 8, b is equal to 3, then how are these values stored directly into the registers which are inside the processor?
Okay, we'll come to that. So there are instructions like load instruction, store instruction, and so on. Okay, so we'll have to actually see in C language, you can say A is equal to B plus C. Then how this is implemented is not your concern. Here, because we are going at to lower level, we'll have to see where is B, where is C. So for example, B and C could be registered. Values stored in, say, something in register, say 1, register 2 will have C, and then addition performed and finally sent to register A. So we'll look at that. Please wait for some time. I will answer your question, because whole design of data set is based on that. Okay, data path is based on that. Okay, all right. So registers are in hardware. So there is only a limited number of them, because these are very fast. The question is that how many registers we can have, and we have discussed this point earlier. Ideal is as large number of registers, because more temporaries or variables you can bring in to registers, right? All right. So see, what we have discussed in one of the classes is that in general, what we do is that we bring all these so-called variables and constants, etc., from memory to registers and manipulate on the register, and finally store the value of register into memory. Okay, so remember one lecture where we had memory here, we have shown, which is nothing but kind of address space, because each processor will look at only as an address space, memory as an address space, and then we have processor here. Within processor, we have registers. And then what we do is that we'll bring something from memory, right? And once we have enough operands available, then we use ALU to get the value or answer and put it back into register, and from register we send it to memory. So this is one way of make this is one part of data path, kind of data, how data actually moves. Normally, most of design you will see ALU does not directly send value to memory. So registers are used to get some value from memory, and on that those values will do computation, and then final result will get stored again into register, and then from register we send it back to the memory, and from memory it can go to IO. Okay, so this is normal structure. We'll come to that again. Does this answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. Okay, so we have 32 registers that we have discussed earlier. We have 32 registers in this. Now these are numbered as X0 to X31. Okay, so these registers that are inside here are starting from X0 to X31. Okay, and and each register size is also of 32-bit. So everything that we are going to deal here is 32-bit. So it means that each register here is 32 bits. Okay, each instruction also is of 32 bits. Okay, the memory size that we take here is also, each word is also 32 bits. Each word is also 32 bits. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead. All right. Okay, so out of these, again, just a minute, I'm sorry. out of this X0 is a special register, okay, and this contains always 0. Contents of X0 is always 0. Okay, all other register can have some values. For example, if you load X0 with some memory location, so bring some value from memory to X0, then its value will remain X0. Okay, why is that? Why designers have thought of this particular scheme? Any thought that comes to your mind?
So it may be a reference to find the other values of the registers. So
No, that's not right. See, very often we need to initialize something. Okay, or for example, you want very often you will see that when you have a counter or something, right, in your program, then you initialize it to 0. Okay, then you need to just copy that value, that register to a particular register. Say, for example, you say A is equal to 0. Okay, then you say if this is in register, say 1, say X1, A, then you say X1 is equal to X0. Okay, or for example, you have instruction like A is equal to 4, this is the initial statement. So what you can do is that you can bring to this register, say X1. So you can say X1, okay, so instruction will be add immediate X1 equal to X0 and the value 4. So X0 is always 0, add 4 to that, and then bring it to value register X1. So this simplifies a lot of operations, okay, because you have only limited number of instructions formats available. So instead of defining a special instruction to load a particular integer into, say, register X1, then instead of that, you can do a simple add operation with 0 and whatever number you want to load, and then bring it to respective register. Is it clear? Is it okay? All right, so we'll see some examples of that. Okay, so we as we said, there are 32 registers, X0 to X32. Register 0, X0 is always 0. It's a constant value 0. All other registers will not have value 0. It can have, but it will not be always fixed with 0. So all the values of remaining register can vary. Okay. Now there are various functionality associated with these registers. So for example, that we will very often use are temporaries. Okay, where temporary value and intermediate values are stored, right? Which are X5 to S7 and X28 to X31. Now stack pointer will be in X2, global pointer will be in X3, thread pointer will be X4. Saved registers, when you move into, say, jump into a procedure, right, the all variables, etc., need to be saved, right? So you save it in register X8. Similarly, X9 is also saved register. So similarly, functional argument can be passed through these two registers. Now we will study all this later, right? However, all this X1 to X31 can also be used for general purpose computation. Okay. However, in certain instances or when certain conditions are there, these registers play a very specific role. So we'll look at these later. Okay. Now these registers, say when we say add say add X3, X2, X1. It means the contents of X1 and X2 are added and moved into X3. So now instead of this X notations, right, we can in general use some kind of name. Okay, this simplifies kind of programming, right? When you do assembly language programming, instead of X0s and X1s, because you'll have to remember where temporaries are. For example, X5 to X7 and X28 to X31 are temporaries. Instead of, and that remembering that you can use T0. So here letter T signifies temporary. So you can use T0 to T6 for storing temporary value. Similarly, when you want to use a register which is meant for stack, which will be used as stack pointer, then you can use name SP and GP and so on, right? So we'll come to that little later, and we'll use this interchangeably uh, in our discussion. Okay, so you can use either RA0, the name, or we can use the numbers, whatever you may feel comfortable. But in general, when you do assembly language programming, try to use names because it reduces errors in coding. Okay. Okay, we'll look at these use of these that I'm discussing here little later. All right. So we said that in assembly we store variables into registers. So in, say for example, in C you can define integer. There are two variables here, FAHR and Celsius. And similarly, characters you can define A, B, C, D, E. Okay. So each variable can only represent value of certain type. It has declared, right? For example, if you cannot say C is equal to FAHR plus B. You cannot do that because this is declared as int type, and while B is char type. So normally in programming we don't do that. Okay, here, however, in assembly everything is stored in different registers, or it's brought from memory to register. Then we have to be careful about what we are doing, and that's actually responsible compiler. Compiler does exactly this. Okay. However, when you do programming in assembly, you are replacing yourself with compiler, right? In some sense, you'll have to think the way a compiler thinks. So registers have no type. Okay, these registers are generally 32-bit registers. So these are 32-bit registers. So it will store what? Zeros and ones. 0, 1, 1, whatever. And you can't define any type to that because we just treat this as a number. An operation is something through which we define how register contents are interpreted. All right. So now we'll see. Don't worry about it if you don't understand now. We'll look at this. We'll go through all instructions of assembly language program in X3 class, and then you will do some coding, and then you'll understand how it works. All right. Any question? Any question? You're there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Sir, I had a small question.
Yes, please.
Sir, initially it was mentioned that when a program runs, the variables get stored in registers. What if the program is long and it cannot get stored in the register?
Also, you'll have to, because very good question, because you have now limited number of registers, you can have limited number of variables. Okay, so basically when you convert high level language into assembly language program, or when do coding in assembly language program, you'll have to think only in terms of number of registers you can have. So you can have those things available in memory, right? You have access to memory, because remember that when we say ISA in general, we say that memory address space available. So you can bring those values from memory to register whenever you need that, because you will be needing for an operation, you will be needing only 2 operands, right? Or maybe 4 operands, whatever, depending on instructions. So in a RISC, for example, you have 3 operands, and one opcode, right? So essentially, so it means that when you say register A is added to register B and data is moved to register C, then you need only 2 at that point in time, right? Okay, that does not mean you cannot define other, say, variables that are stored in memory. And you can bring those whenever there is a need. Okay, so however, these variables, whenever we execute that instruction, then those variables are actually mapped into particular register. So let's look at this way, and then see, because it means that you'll have to make more movements of movements from memory to register and register to memory in order to define large number of variables. Okay, we'll see how this can be done. We'll actually take up one example. So today we'll discuss some of these because we have about 20 minutes time left out. We'll look at add immediate, subtract, load. L stands for load, W stands for load word, S stands for store, W stands for word. So LB, the load byte, B stands for byte, L stands for load. Load byte and store byte, S stands for store. So these are just few instruction formats that we have. So okay, so in RISC-V we have register type, immediate type, load and store type, okay, and then U type, and J stands for jump, okay, and then there are various operands in that. So sorry, so this is operand. Now you see that all have, okay, and then register type of instruction, for example, R type of instruction will have 3 registers: RS2, RS1, and RD. And then we see that there are some other fields, because now this is 7-bit. These we have 32 registers, right, in the architecture. So we need how many bits to represent it? Anyone? In order to represent 32 registers, how many bits we need? Yeah, 5 bits, right? See, so this field will be 5 bits. Each register, when we represent a register, out of 32 registers, we need to define. We'll have to represent one register here, right? So in order to represent one of the 32 registers here, at this point, we need just 5 bits. So it means that each field, RS1, RS2, RD is equal to 555, so 15 bits plus opcode of 7. Then we can have some space left out, which function 3 and F7, function 7, which can be used to extend opcode. So all these places you see here in different format types. So opcode and this field combined defines a format or opcode, or what is to be done, or what this instruction represent is by combination of these two. But this, looking at these first 7 bits, you can interpret whether you need this field or not. Okay, so this simplifies the compiler construction. Okay, so there are different kinds of formats. R format has nothing but we call it register formats. So it has 3 operands which corresponds to 3 registers, and instruction types are add, addition, multiplication, logical operation like add, multiplication, subtract, exclusive OR, and so on. Second is intermediate types of instructions, where one of the field value, for example here I, is a constant. Okay, so we have seen one example of that, like add immediate. Okay, so we'll have, for example, C is equal to B plus 4. Now this thing we'll have to define somewhere, right, in the instruction, right? So this is a constant value, so we can use here corresponding constant value, right? So in I instruction there is intermediate or constant type, and also same format can be used for load instruction, load and store, LW and SW or L. Then we have S formats, which is store word and store byte. Okay, and then we have SB format, which is branch instruction. Branch if two operands are equal, or branch if one operand is greater than other. And then we have U format, which is upper immediate format. We'll look at that. And then we have jump instructions. Okay, so jumps could be of various types. So it just could be unconditional jump or conditional jumps. So and jump and link type. So we'll look at each of these in detail. Okay, let's get into very simple instruction. Okay, so operand locations here in this architecture are essentially three. Operands could be in registers, it could be in memory, or it could be constant like immediates that we have seen, right? Okay, all right. So we will study instructions based on the functionality, and formats we will look at the end. Okay, so very simple instruction is as follows, right? It is add this opcode x1, x2, x3. Now we are numbering here register. We are not using name in this example. And the semantics is, now hash we use here to represent is comment. So this part is comment. Okay, when you write this assembly language instruction in the program, if you use hash and something that you write on the right side of that, that becomes comment. So essentially what we are telling here is that contents of x2 is added with contents of x3, and then summation of this is moved into register x1. All right, so x2 contents are added with contents of x3, and then whatever is the result is moved into contents of x1. All right, so so this is opcode. This is the destination register. X1 is destination register. X2 is first operand, and x3 is second operand. All right, any question on this one? Is it clear? Is it fine? Okay, anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So we can do addition in the following way. We have instruction called add. So we can do add x1, x2, x3. So semantics is in C, corresponding instruction in the C is A is equal to B plus C. Now here register x1 corresponds to A, register x2 corresponds to B, and x3 corresponds to C. All right. Subtraction similarly we can perform. So we have sub x3, x2, x5. So these are the, so it means that x4 minus x5 will go into x3. It means the content of x4, take content of x4, from that subtract contents of x5, and the result you move into register x3. So in C, if the statement is D is equal to E minus F, then contents of x4 will be corresponding to E, contents of x5 will correspond to F, and the result, which is corresponding to D, will be stored in register x3. All right, is it okay? Any doubt? Okay, all right, assuming that you understood it. So now let's see how to do this operation, right? So this is C statement in C. A is equal to B plus C plus D minus C. So when we discuss the philosophy of RISC, then we said that we can split any complex instruction into a smaller number of instructions, or into multiple number of instructions, which are of simple type. So we can say, so, all right, we'll have to say where these values are stored. Okay, so for example, okay. So, okay, so X1 register will be, so X1 will contain B, X2 will contain C, X3 will contain D, X4 will contain E. Then we can say that X0, and there are a number of ways in which you can create a corresponding assembly language program, right? So we can say X plus X1 and X2 are added. So B plus C are added and then move into a temporary X10. All right. Now B plus C, this we have done and it's available in X10. Now we have to add to this one D. So we can say add to X10 value of X3, which is D, and move the value into X10. So basically, X10 value is added to X3 and then result will move to. So in case of ALU, you know, when we have looked at the design of data path, so essentially we take value from register, say X10, this is X10, second is X3. These two values go into here and output goes to X10. Output goes in. So this is simple data path for the corresponding section. And then finally, once we have done these three additions, A, B plus C plus D, then we have to subtract E. And we know that E is in X4. So we can use the section X sub X10 minus X4. It means that take value from X10 and from that subtract value of X4, and then the result will go to X10. All right. Okay, where X10 represents A. All right. Is it okay? All right. So the format of this instruction, which we'll study later, is basically when you say add or subtract, it has three operands: register 1, register 2, and register 3. And you'll see here, this is machine level instruction. So you will have opcode, then destination register, source register 1, source register 2. So you can say this is RD, RS1, and RS2. Okay, and these two function 3 and 7 extends the value of operations, which may not be really required very often. So we'll now move into the next one. Okay, is it okay with all of you? Okay, now let's do second type of instructions, that is immediate types. Now we'll see that here immediate is essentially a 12-bit constant. Okay, so here this is immediate field in instruction, which is 12-bit wide. Okay, so instruction type is add immediate or ADDI X3 X4 minus 10. Okay, this is assembly language program, the assembly language instruction, and corresponding in C you have F is equal to G minus 10. So what are we showing here? So we are using register X3 X4. So X3 corresponds to G, X4 corresponds to, X3 corresponds to F, and X4 corresponds to G. Now this minus 10, now remember that we are going to use 2's complement. in higher level language to represent it, right? So now you you have to now is right now when you're doing assembly language programming, you don't have to worry about how to represent this in 2's complement. It's a responsibility of assembler to convert this into corresponding 2's complement number. So let's just look at the syntax of this sentence, which is add addi x3 x4 minus 10 corresponds to C instruction f is equal to g minus 10. Okay. Okay, all right. So all right. So what's happening here? So what we are taking x4 and minus 10, adding them and moving to x3, which is equivalent to this instruction. All right. Okay. So basically, we see that add immediate is very similar to add, excepting that one argument or one is a constant value, okay, which is minus 10. Had it been add, then it would be x3, x4, and some other register here. Okay, all right. You understand now? So in case of add, we have x3, x4, x0, for example. Okay, all right. Any question? Now, suppose we have to do simple assignment, which is f is equal to g. Okay, in C, if you say f, variable f is equal to value g, then what can you do? I mean, f is here in x3, g is here in x4, and so you can use this instruction, add x3, x4, and 0. So x0 is nothing but x0. So x4 plus 0 is x4. So x4 is assigned to x3. So then this corresponds to f is equal to g. You can also use add immediate and specify value 0. You can say add immediate x3, x4, and 0 also. That will also work. Okay, all right. Any question up to this point? Any question? Okay, so so we have studied the following. We have studied add, subtract, add immediate. So in this format, there will be many instructions which we will look at later. Now, next to instruction is that, as someone has asked question that what we'll do if a number of registers are just few and variables could be many. So answer is that we can use load and store instructions. Okay, so memory can contain lot many data values, right? Okay, so we will bring values from memory to register and register to memory. So load is something, I'm sorry, load is when we bring value from memory to register is called load, and when we store the value of register to memory location, that's called store. All right, so let's look at now all this we know. Memory in RISC has address space of 2 raised power 32 because address size 32, and then it is byte addressable. Okay, we have looked at byte addressable and word addressable earlier, right? So however, processor uses words, right? Most of the instruction in terms of word. Then what is going to be the address of word is nothing but address of the first byte of that word. Okay, so and we are using here little endian, and we have studied earlier little endian and big endian. Okay, so we are using little endian. So memory is going to start from 0 0 0 0. Let's assume this is how much, 3 or 4. This is assuming that this 8-bit size instead of 32. for example. Okay, and then the first word will start from 0, 0, 0, 0, and then corresponding 4 bytes will be here. Now order of these bytes is defined by little endian, and then next word we are going to fetch from memory, it will be the starting from 0, 0, whatever, 7 zeros and 4. It means that you have to add 4 continuously to get next instruction. Second instruction, if you have to get third instruction, then you have to add further 4 to that. Okay, any question? Any question, please? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
Confusion है कहीं पे?
नहीं, sir.
Okay, all right. There's a move further, right? Okay, this we have already studied. We'll have to, in order to get first word, you'll have to start from 0, 0. Second word is add 4. Third word add another 4. So you can do multiplication and get next word. Okay, all right. So it's simple. Now let's move into, okay, another 2 minutes and then we'll close. Okay, so is load word. Remember, L stands for load, W stands for word. Okay, and then it has 3 operands. RD is a destination register, offset, and then the base register. Okay, so it's as follows, right? Load into register RD. This is load into this particular register. Contains from some memory, contains of some memory location, whose location is given by some register, base register. Say for example, here we have given base registers x0. So take contents of x0 and take contents of offset, which is 4 here in this example. And so add these, and that addition will give the location of the memory. And then read that word from memory and bring it to register RD. Simple? Okay. So let's take example here. Load LW. Yeah. Okay. So there is a concept of base register here or register. You will have to read that value and add to that this offset. Okay. And then this total summation gives the location from where you'll have to bring the word to this destination register. Okay, so here in this example, LW x5, comma, then 4x0. It means that you will have to find out the address of memory location using these two, 4 and x0. X0 is register content. The register will contain something. Okay, look at that, add to that 4 and go to that memory location. So this memory location is contents of x0 plus 4. So this gives the address and get that content to register RD. So let's look at this example and then we'll close today's lecture. Okay, so this is memory. Memory is here. It's starting from 0, 0, 0, 0, 8 zeros and going up. So first word is here starting at 0. So this is the first word. This is the second word, third word, and fourth word. Now, what we have to do is that when we execute this, okay, x5, 4, and x0. So what are we loading here? You know, value of x0 is 0. Okay, so 0 plus 4 is the memory location. So 4 is the memory location, and bring from that whatever is stored there in the word, because it's word reading, into register x5. So x5 will now contain whatever is here because the word is starting from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 4. Okay, so x5 now holds F2, F1, A, C07, whatever is here. Okay, had there been, instead of X0, had we defined X1, and X1 contained some value. Say, let's assume X1 contained 0, 0, 0, 0 up to 7, 0, and 8. Then essentially what we are doing, we are adding to this contents this constant 4. Okay, now with addition of this, the address becomes 0, 0, 0, 0, C. And then we are reading the word. It means that we are reading this word and bringing into register X5.